everyone. Just wanted to update you on a quick change of plans in terms of the order of how we're going to do podcasts and what we're going to cover. Last week, I talked about moving into usage-based and how usage-based sales works. We're going to pause that for 1 week because we have a great podcast with Fullcast. For those of you who don't know them, they're a company that have been very acquisitive and really trying to grow into a full service provider for go-to-market. So we're going to put that in place for this week and then start on the usage base next week. I hope you enjoy it.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Innovative Revenue Leader podcast. This is one of those podcasts that we do where we have the opportunity to talk to really special revenue innovators, people that are doing things that are not in the flow of the way we normally do these podcasts where we're focusing on a specific topic. And I am really fortunate to have today Amy Cook and Ryan Westwood, founders of Fullcast, joining us today to talk a little bit about what they're doing, a book that they have out, and then some of the acquisitions that they've been doing over the past year. So just brief introductions. Amy has a PhD in communications from the University of Utah and is an established marketing executive, communications expert, thought leader, educator. She does all sorts of things. She's the founder and chief marketing officer of Fullcast, founded and led stage marketing as the CEO for 15 years. And in addition to all of this, if that's not enough, is she's helped multiple high growth companies move from Series A through to acquisition, including Simplest, Pathology Watch, and Onboard. And then Ryan's equally as established, and he's the chairman and CEO of Fullcast. He's invested in over 50 startups as a serial entrepreneurs, 3 exits, including Simplest, which he grew from the ground up and then sold to Infosys for $250 million. Thank you guys for joining us.
Thank you so much for having us. Really appreciate it.
Yes, thank you for having us.
Yeah, it's great. It's great to have you guys. So where I'd like to start is just because when you think of revenue operations, that's a term that's been around for a long time. It's grown in sector. I mean, people have talked about it being the number one job hired on LinkedIn these days. How do you define it? Because I've heard RevOps define anything from it's just a sales ops role redefined or reskinned as the RevOps role. It's a broader role, sales, marketing, customer success. When you guys think about it, how do you think about that role?
Go ahead, Ryan.
Yeah, so I think there's a couple things you can look at. In any great business, you always have 2 things. One, you either have revenue, high revenue growth, or EBITDA. They're the 2 things that all business leaders look at. And if you're going to be an efficient, high-growing company and impact the 2 most important numbers, EBITDA and revenue, that's what a revenue operations leader does. And I can't think of any more mission-critical metrics in a business than those 2. And if that is your primary focus, you can have an enormous impact on a business. And so I see it as scaling product, customer success, sales, marketing. You are focused on bringing everybody together to create an efficient growth engine. And there's only a few executives in a company that have that type of role. I mean, if you think about it, even a CMO or a VP of sales or any of those roles, they have a silo. This is a role that's how do we make everything run efficiently and impact the top and bottom line of an organization?
One of the things that I think is so transformational about this is if you take a look back 150 years, we've got bureaucracy, right? Bureaucracy was created for a good reason, right? It was to help these companies scale. It's to help the Industrial Revolution. And over time, with the digital transformation, we realize that that business model is wrong now. It's wrong for today's society. So what is so impactful to me is that revenue operations has the opportunity to not only develop efficient growth, but to actually change the way that business is done today. And so for me, that's why I was so interested in working particularly with this persona, is because of the impact and transformation beyond what I think most of us even realize.
Yeah, and I mean, how do you see that playing out in the long run? Because I've started to see situations where the RevOps role is getting elevated alongside a CMO or a chief sales officer. Do you see that becoming the trend? Because they're kind of the glue on those things to a certain degree. Like, how do you see that progressing? Is that because I think SalesLoft did it? I know there are a couple other companies that did that. How do you see that?
Yeah, so we did some surveys. And now, mind you, these customers are companies that had 500 employees or greater. So the data I'm giving, these are medium to larger businesses. But what was very interesting when we did the survey 6 months apart, asking who does the RevOps role report to, we saw about a 10% jump to the CEO. We saw a drop to the CRO, and we saw more to the CFO and COO. And so you're seeing it become more. Now it's still 50% the CRO, right? But when you break it out with all the different areas, I mean, we even saw a few that were to the CMO. But you're starting to see more and more focus on RevOps, and it be elevated to where now there's a struggle I'm seeing even more so with the CFO and CRO of where does it go? Because they eclipse 20% in our survey CFOs. They're on the surge and they're stealing from the CRO. And so then you're saying, okay, where does this go? And I'm sure it's because of what we just described. The CRO wants their focus on revenue, and the CFO wants it focused on efficient revenue growth and margins. And so, because the role serves both, they both want them in their purview.
Interesting.
That's
Yeah.
right.
I mean, yeah. Go ahead,
Yeah,
Amy.
if you think of it as efficient growth, you've got the CRO on one side and the CFO on the other side. And then in the middle is the RevOps person going, let me just get you all the metrics and let's do this together. It's kind of funny because I worked as a practitioner for a large enterprise healthcare company as their RevOps lead. And I at first started reporting to the head of sales. And it became very apparent that I had to report to the division head instead because of what Ryan was talking about exactly, which is it wasn't just about getting the sales team their numbers. It was about connecting with operations, connecting with finance, and making sure that it all flowed together. So
Interesting.
mhm.
The one part that I wonder, because that makes perfect sense, right? Because you're the conduit and you're also the person that knows how to get everything done, right? The seller needs to go sell, the marketer needs to go generate demand for the business and awareness. But at the end of the day, if you want to know what's happening in a growth organization, it's the RevOps leader.
That's right. They know where all the bodies are buried for sure.
Yeah, exactly. The funny thing is, it makes me wonder because technology is becoming this big thing as a part of it too. Is I could see the CIO lurking behind the
Oh, for
scenes
sure.
as
For
someone
sure.
too that's going to start clawing away at that.
Yeah.
Well,
I mean,
go ahead, Ryan.
I was just going to say, now that you have some of the technologies becoming critical to the business, the CIO is now getting involved. I'll give you an example, CPQ. With CPQ, all of a sudden the CIO is like, this is mine. Commissions, paying commissions. CIOs like, this is mission critical. You forecasting to the board, lead routing. Those now CIOs are reaching in. And as I'm saying this, it's actually an even better argument that they report to the CEO, because the CEO is the one who cares about the top and bottom line primarily, where the CFO, I've heard some say, man, it's really hard under the CFO because they're so cost conscious that I can't do some of these things. Like I know there's this technology unlock that would help our reps generate pipeline more productively, but he won't let me, or she won't let me. If it's the CRO, sometimes there's cases where you're going to get in trouble with the CFO, and maybe you're making purchases they don't approve and you can't get anything purchased because the CFO has to give the final say. But if it's with the CEO, now you're aligned and you're balanced more. And so I could see why that would make sense.
Yeah, it needs to be the CEO. It's the chief RevOps executive. That's the new title of the future. Because it is. I mean, and if you're going to ask a question and you're a CEO, that's the person that'll have the context between all of those groups on how they connect together to drive growth. It makes total sense. So in the book, you had talked about the RevOps team being like the pit crew around this. And it's really obvious kind of looking at what you guys have done and where you're going that you're passionate about this role. Can you talk through just a little bit around how this perspective formed? Not only to write the book, but also, I mean, not only did you write a book about it, but you built an entire company and are building even more. technology and support specifically for the CRO. Like, can you tell us a little bit about that journey?
Sure. Really, our journey began 20 years ago before the term RevOps was even coined. So, Ryan was working building Sugar CRM as a sales leader. I was working doing HubSpot and Salesforce implementations as a marketing leader. There just wasn't a function for that. And as there became a very strong need, what Ryan and I saw was that this is going to become a very, very important role in every company in order to eliminate silos, in order to sync up your sales and your marketing and your customer success ops with your data and your sales enablement. We consider those five basically what is kind of the purview of RevOps. And so all of those things need to really carefully sink in together, which goes back to our earlier point of, if your CIO's in charge of your data ops, you've got to loop that person in. If your CX person doesn't have a role or a say in what you're doing in RevOps, then that whole function is siloed. So it becomes really important, but we really saw from personal experience just building these at other companies and then working together at Simplus, scaling that as a Salesforce partner. Then, we got that acquired by Infosys, worked there at Infosys for a little bit, and then started off on this new adventure.
Wow. And so, like, one thing I found really interesting, I mean, Amy, you come from the marketing side of things. A lot of the technology at Fullcast and a lot of the lean, when you talk about even in the book around a RevOps leader, seems to be more on the sales side. You talk about alignment 100%. You're talking about how it connects with even customer success as well. How do you see that blend happening? Because there's this whole world happening on the marketing side and the digital piece. And I mean, from a Fullcast standpoint, you have a big suite for sellers.
Mm-hmm.
How do you see the connection point, the technology kind of connecting in with marketing and bringing them together?
That's a really great question. So we have to start somewhere, right? Our grand vision is to be able to build all of it. But right now we've got to start with a good point, a good place to start, and that is with sales technology. Ryan, please, I'm talking too much. Come and jump in.
No,
But
that's great.
but it's really, really exciting because there's a lot going on with sales technology and AI right now. And from my perspective, I really enjoy being part of this because I've always wanted to be more connected with sales. I've always wanted to be able to be seen the way that I personally see marketing as the hub of the wheel along the entire customer journey. So in many ways, my perspective in marketing has really been one of revenue operations. And as I have been working with hundreds of CEOs for the last 15 years before I started with Ryan at Simplus and then Fullcast, I've had the opportunity to basically work as a revenue operations person, connecting the sales and the marketing functions. And they're so disjointed that sales leaders sometimes refuse to give target accounts to marketing leaders. I can't even understand that. And because they don't understand it. They don't understand that collaborating is so much more effective than keeping them in a siloed bureaucratic process. And I go right back to organizational theory. It's not sales leaders' faults. It's not a land grab. It's nothing except an old methodology that was taught to them about bureaucracy that has been the prevailing organizational theory for 150 years. It's no longer that. And so it's my job as one of the founders of Fullcast to be able to help re-educate in that area.
Gotcha. What's your take, Ryan?
You look at business and we're always looking for an advantage in the marketplace, right? How do we become more efficient? How do we build a better business? And I'm always striving to build a beautiful business. And when you look at the technologies that it takes to do that, you look at Fullcast. For me, I'm thinking, okay, what are some things that I can make more efficient and make my business more beautiful? Well, one of those, territories. If I want to build territories and I'm doing it in a spreadsheet, now it's not automatically changing or updating when people get fired, quit, hired. You're not using the latest technology to figure out the most equitable, efficient way. I mean, I don't know if you've ever had a sales leader have to deal with and babysit people in their territories that were upset. That's never happened before. You've never had a rep who was supposed to take these critical accounts and suddenly a change was made and they're upset. If you want to affect the emotional state of a salesperson, mess up all their territories and kick off your year and see how that year goes. It is not great. So yes, is it important to have a technology for that to get it right and make it equitable? Absolutely. Is it important to have technology that a rep can pull up a dashboard and see their commissions at any time? How am I getting paid? How much could I get paid? How much am I getting paid? Yeah, absolutely. If you think about the fragile state of a salesperson, you do not want them to emotionally be caught up in, am I getting paid or how am I getting paid? You want them caught up in how to close deals, how to grow the business. So these are the things that I think that the technologies that we provide with paying commissions, making equitable territories, making sure you understand your ROI on your lead sources, forecasting revenue and nailing that forecast to the board. If you're a salesperson or a sales leader, I believe that you're going to run a better organization, a more efficient organization, and your odds of hitting quota go up when you have Fullcast.
Mm-hmm. Well said. Absolutely right. One thing I love that you said, Ryan, was the emotional state of the sales leaders, and that goes to marketing as well. I mean, think about a good culture and how much more productive a good culture is. And if you can get rid of the silos in the sales and the marketing and the customer success people, like either fighting over leads or feeling like their territories are not equitable or feeling like they're not being supported, your culture becomes so much better and your productivity becomes so much better.
Yeah, performance is a good elixir to a strong culture, isn't it? So
Right.
one of the things that comes up with RevOps is the empowerment side of things, right? Like in a lot of cases, you could see RevOps teams get mired down, and because you're in it every day, you're trying to pull all this stuff together. You guys have talked a lot about elevating that. Like we talked about this earlier. How do I get them into, they need to be in the right places or up in the organization to be able to answer questions. Taking a practical example. So like if you think about like data management and reporting, right? That could easily translate into somebody who is just basically the report person for the sales leader who said, every time I need a report, you go pull it for me, or go fix the data, do all that stuff. If you're a RevOps leader that's kind of in that position, how would you guide them, or what advice would you give to be able to move away from that or into that more strategic role?
Yeah, because a lot of times what you're saying is they get involved in day-to-day support roles.
Yes.
Right. And then what happens is they're unsung heroes. And then what makes it even worse is when revenue goes well, the CRO looks good. When the business is efficiently growing, the CFO looks good. It's like a no-win for the RevOps leader for getting the credit for the situation. And so one of the things I've told RevOps leaders to do to position themselves more strategically is to support the board deck, to get involved in building the board deck. Because now what's going to happen is the CEO is going to have the epiphany that the person that's the trusted source that knows all the silos and departments, that the CRO and the CFO and the CMO are going for the data, is the RevOps person. They're going to have the realization that, oh my gosh, they're all asking this person. This person has a view of all departments that's more even. They're not going to give me a skew based on their department even, right? And they know the data. So the key though is you have to know your stuff. And then you volunteer and you get involved in the board deck. And naturally, I think what will happen is you'll get invited to board meetings to speak, and you will raise your profile from support to executive.
I love that. One of the things I think also that Ryan pointed out is that by knowing the strategy all the way down to the tactics, it makes you such a good leader. So you have Balaji Krish is one of our advisors, and he came on to my go-to-market podcast, and we talked about kind of the percentage breakdown between strategy and operational and tactical things that a RevOps person does. For him, he is 20% strategic, 40% operational, and 20% tactical or something like that. But it's basically, there are three main functions that a RevOps person has to do. And from my perspective, being able to go all the way down to the data means that, like, when Ryan asked me to pull something, that means that he trusts me that I'm going to go all the way down to the data. I'm going to look at the actual form fill that came in from the lead source, and I'm going to follow it all the way through the customer journey. And so when you can develop that kind of trust with your CEO, then you become automatically relied upon and trusted. And that trust is what will get you next to the CEO faster than anything.
So,
Absolutely.
I mean, if I read that back to you, it's basically earn a seat at the table through knowledge and understanding of the business, becoming that source that can answer questions and do things that others can't because you're sitting at the center of it.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great feeling when the CEO asks a question around the table and you're the one that knows the answer. I mean, there's no really better way to show your value than that.
Yeah,
Amen.
that makes sense. Okay, so let's transition to talk about technology and Fullcast specifically. So, in your state of revenue operations survey, only 10% of the people surveyed said they're getting a lot from their tech stack. That is shocking, but also not surprising. Like, you can see those signs everywhere. Like, the amount of time sellers are spending selling is actually not going up with all this tech, it's actually going down. So it isn't surprising to see, but doesn't make it any less shocking. So it feels like this is the problem you're trying to solve with Fullcast. And for those of you who don't know or haven't followed this, you guys have been really busy. You acquired Commissionly in June, which I thought was a really nice add to be able to round out and make you a full SPM provider, adding the commission side of things. But then in September, you went back to back acquiring Ebsta, which is an orchestration provider in the UK, and then you acquired Atrium that focused on the enablement side. Wow, that's a lot of stuff. And it as I talk to you, I can see the vision of where you're going. You're trying to build a stack that a revenue operations leader can use to run the entire business. But I'd love to hear it from your perspective, just the vision around acquiring those all together and putting them all together.
Yeah, we kind of came into this with the viewpoint that in 2020, 21, and even 2022, a lot of products were treated like companies. So, what I view as it should have been one of a few products, it's not enough to create a business around. They were funded. And then, even worse, you had features of products that got funded in 21. I mean, we got real excited about SaaS in 21. And we funded a lot of businesses that I think if you step back and think, does this business truly have what it would take to be a public company? I think most of us would clearly see the answer was no really quick.
Yeah.
And so our thesis coming into this is you have hundreds of these point solutions, and people are fatigued from so many point solutions that are not orchestrated and they don't work together. It's vendor fatigue, it's all the contracts, it's all of that. And the consolidation of it, I think, is a beautiful thing for a CRO that needs to be focused on revenue.
Mm-hmm.
And I look at the ecosystem right now, and I think it needs to be consolidated, heavily consolidated. And then on the reverse, I think that these companies need to find homes fast, because I don't think any of these point solutions, or even ones that have 2 point solutions, are going to have the business to be enduring, to have the structure to really create a public company. And so I think the sooner they can consolidate and become a more robust business, then you can create incredible companies. And I believe we're positioned to become a market leader. And I know, we're still early in this journey, but I fully expect that we will become a market leader because we're approaching this different than the ecosystem at large.
Yeah, and go ahead, Amy.
Oh, sure. We just have a digital maturity of the entire market that's happened since COVID. I mean, COVID came in and hit us all like a wrecking ball, right? We're like, oh, digital transformation. If you didn't know about it, it's here now, and you better get all of your tech ready, right?
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
now, as we're kind of unraveling some of the aftermath of that, that's what we're living in right now. And that's why we're having so much, tech that's falling by the wayside. We're being able to parse through what's a feature, what's a product, and what's an actual platform. The entire market is becoming more digitally mature, and it's a really interesting time of life because, as a former consultant like Ryan at Simplus, we had our digital maturity model per company, but now we're seeing the digital maturity model through the entire ecosystem, and it's really fascinating to watch.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's interesting because you're not building, it doesn't seem like, looking at it, as you're not trying to build a category, you're spanning across categories. You have a very unique position on how these tools come together. Could you just take a couple minutes and walk through, like, how does Atrium fit with Ebsta, fit with
Yeah.
Commissionly? Because I Fullcast and Commissionly, everyone would say, yeah, that makes total sense. The other two, it's like,
Yep.
walk us
So,
through that a little.
yeah. So Atrium will be the insights and reporting for everything. And then EBSTA will be forecasting, sales forecasting. And then you have our territory and commissions. And I believe if you ask a CIO, what are the core technologies you purchase outside of a CRM, they're immediately going to name off commissions, and then they're going to talk about forecasting. And we've got to have great insights. And Atrium's founder was a designer by trade, designed the PayPal app and the eBay integration, just builds beautiful products. When we looked at it, we thought we could not build something more beautiful. We're going to take this and utilize it across our platform because it's very easy to use and pretty.
If we think about it from a brand perspective, our goal is to become the revenue platform from plan all the way through pay. And so we've got three more with the inclusion of Ebsta and Atrium. It completes that journey where we have the sales planning, we've got the forecasting and deal intelligence, which we call Fullcast Perform now, and we've got the commissions, which is pay, underpinning this beautiful out-of-the-box BI solution, which we have with Atrium.
Got it. So this is because one of the gaps, or one of the, what's the word, like, loose ends that's always been out there when you talk about sales performance management solutions has been forecasting. Like, it's in a weird place in a lot. Like, it doesn't really have a place. Like, it's in orchestration, but should it be? And then it's kind of like SPM providers have tried to put it in. So you're drawing that in and saying, now we're going to be a provider that does the forecasting, and then Atrium becomes it becomes the wider ecosystem to be able to better report on all those different things.
Absolutely.
That's right. So we think of it as plan, perform, pay, and plus.
Plan, perform, pay, and plus. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, plus is the Atrium because we're plussing all of the analytics and the dashboards.
Okay. Great. Okay, so I can't have a podcast without asking about AI. Of course, that would break the rules of today's modern, or like today's environment.
That's right.
Just how do you actually, I think a lot of what you're talking about isn't necessarily, it's complementary, but like, how do you see that fitting in and weaving into this whole strategy around Fullcast, and where you're going to place your bets for implementing it?
Yeah, right when we purchased Fullcast originally, we began building an AI native platform. And so we're standing up these AI territory analysts, commission analysts. We'll continue to have these analysts, and we're very excited. We have customers already testing and working on those and giving us feedback and beta testing. So it'd be fun to see as that evolves going forward. But we're really high on AI and the future impact it can have on. I mean, at the end of the day, I said we want to create beautiful businesses. So whatever technology we need to do to innovate, to do that, we'll do it.
One of the things that I think is really interesting, as we are kind of, as a market, we're all laser focused on AI, right? And some of us have different perspectives, but overall, we're starting to see that there are some things that AI is good for, and there are some things that AI is not good for. And our goal is to be AI first at everything that AI is good for, which is efficient growth. The relationships need to stay human. The point solutions that, like spam your LinkedIn, they probably aren't going to last. Nobody wants it, but the ones that help you become more productive, that plan faster, plan better, perform better, pay better, all of those things are going to be very, very important. And it must be an AI first platform, which is why we've rebuilt it to be so.
Got it. So, I mean, yeah, use AI to build the efficiencies to enable people to spend more time on the personal side.
That's right.
Welcome back to the Innovative Revenue Leaders podcast. So this is a interruption to a podcast we were about to release with Fullcast. Right when we were about to release it, they acquired Copy.ai. So I asked Amy to come back and give us a little bit of insight into that acquisition, what happened, so we can append it to the original podcast and release those things together. So Amy, welcome back. You've been busy as usual.
Thank you so much for having me, Seth. It's such a pleasure. And yes, we just really like to run at 250 miles an hour. So it has been really fun. We've been on an acquisition spree, as you know. And now the real challenge begins to integrate everything. Copy AI was just an absolute, we're absolutely 100% thrilled with this acquisition. It gives us the opportunity to be AI native, not just having like portions of AI, but within a software platform, but be truly AI native. So as we continue to consolidate the Fullcast product suite into a platform, that will give us the opportunity to have these AI native workflows go from sales to marketing to customer success and an overall GTM. So we're very, very excited about it.
Interesting. Yeah, it's pervasive. So similar to some of the other acquisitions that we talked about in the podcast, this is the vision is beyond just what the feature set was of the specific product, like the Copy.ai. You'll get the content benefits, but it also has a platform benefit across all that will expand across all the different products that you've acquired.
Yes, that's right. So our hope is that people will see this not just as building AI agents, but as an AI agency, as the first one, really. We have, right now, current state, incredible benefits for marketing and for SDRs and for sales in terms of unifying the brand and making sure that the copy is extremely high quality. But in the future, the workflows are going to take a prominent position as we replatform some of what we're doing. So,
awesome, great. Thank you again for joining and give us an update. Now I can get this podcast out so everyone can learn a little bit more about what you guys are up to. Thanks again. Don't do an acquisition in the next week and a half, please. So we can.
Well, thank you so much for having me. It's just really a pleasure to talk with you, and appreciate you having me on the podcast.